Israel will pause its military operations in Gaza for 4 hours a day. That's where we're starting the 7 from the Washington Post. I'm Christina Quinn, in for Jeff Pierre. It's Friday, November 10th. Let's get you caught up with today's 7 stories. Number 1. U.S. and Israeli officials yesterday announced the short daily pauses in Israel's bombardment of Gaza. They said the pauses would allow for the distribution of food, medicine, and other aid to civilians, and to allow them to escape areas of fighting. Israel said they would take place in a different area of Gaza each day, with just a few hours' notice. The pauses are much shorter than what the U.S. had been pushing for. President Biden said yesterday that he had asked Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for a 3-day pause. Tens of thousands of civilians have fled intense fighting in Gaza's north this week, and more than a month into the war, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza is getting critical. Democratic Senator Joe Manchin is not running for re-election. That's story number 2. His departure means that the Democrats' razor-thin majority in the Senate is under threat in 2024. Manchin has held onto his seat in West Virginia since 2010, even as the state has grown more conservative. He made the announcement in a video posted on social media yesterday, and it suggests he may not totally be retiring yet. He said he plans to travel the country to gauge if there's interest in creating a movement to mobilize and bring Americans together.
We need to take back America and not let this divisive hatred further pull us apart. Public service has and continues to drive me every day. That is the vow that I made to my father over 40 years ago, and I intend to keep that vow until my dying day.
Some Democrats are worried that Manchin may run for president as a third-party candidate. That could hurt Biden's re-election chances, and recent polling numbers have shown that he's already in trouble. Number 3. The U.S. government has started preparing for another possible shutdown. That's right, we're doing this again. Federal funding is set to expire in 7 days on November 17th. That deadline was set in September when Congress managed to agree to a last-minute deal to avoid a shutdown. But that was only for a little while. Now, some House Republicans are again threatening to prevent Congress from reaching a deal before the new deadline. They say they won't consider any short-term funding deal unless it includes steep budget cuts. But Biden and his fellow Democrats say they won't agree to that. So the path forward is unclear, which means another potential shutdown crisis is heading our way. Millions of government workers and military personnel could be sent home or made to work without pay next week. More kindergartners than ever are missing their childhood vaccines. That's number 4. The percentage of kindergartners whose parents opted them out of state-required vaccines rose to the highest level yet during the last school year. That's according to CDC data released yesterday. The trend began even before the coronavirus pandemic, but the pandemic magnified anti-vaccine sentiment, and even for those parents who wanted to vaccinate their kids, it made it harder for them to schedule appointments. The declining vaccination rates are worrying because they lead to a higher risk of the spread of measles and other highly contagious diseases. At number 5, the video chat app Omegle has shut down. You may be familiar with this unusual online forum if you spend a certain amount of time online. If you're not, Omegle was founded in 2009. It would randomly pair users for video calls with strangers, much like chat roulette. The platform had seen a revival during the pandemic as teenagers on TikTok uploaded videos of their encounters. But the app had one big problem. Omegle was named in several legal cases for its use by pedophiles to target minors. Earlier this year, a report by BBC News found more than 50 sexual abuse cases involving a minor worldwide since 2021 mentioned the site, including 20 in the U.S. Americans are increasingly confused about when and how much to tip. That's number 6. A new study looked at our changing tipping habits. It found that only 34% of adults said it's extremely or very easy to know which services need a tip. And just 33% said the same about deciding on the right amount to tip. The results probably aren't that surprising. There are no set rules about tipping, and expectations seem to keep changing. The standard tip has crept up to 20% in recent years, and people say they're being prompted to tip in more and more places. And at number 7, a Titanic passenger's pocket watch that was frozen in time is up for auction. The watch belonged to Sinai Cantor, a second-class passenger who died in the infamous sinking in 1912. It's one of several Titanic items, including a first-class dinner menu, being auctioned this weekend. But this watch is particularly special and kind of eerie. Its hands are missing now, but there are water stains where the hands once were. They point to about 2:25 a.m., 5 minutes after the ship sank into the Atlantic Ocean. You can take a look at this amazing artifact in our newsletter. That's the show for this week. The assistant producer of The 7 is Taylor White. The staff writers are Jamie Ross and Hannah Jewell. Special thanks to Hannah for helping host the show this week. John Taylor is our editor. Additional editing by me, Christina Quinn. Copy editing by Melissa No and Francis Moody. Mixing and sound design is by Jim Briggs and Justin Garish. Our theme music is by Edith Mudge. Jeff Pierre is our host and senior producer. Our director of audio is Renita Jablonski. I'm Christina Quinn. Thanks for listening and happy Veterans Day, and have a great weekend. I'll meet you back here on Monday.